All right, here we go. Back for another night. I was trying to get back into something, hopefully, of a regular cadence here on stream. It's been it's been about a week. Sorry for the mess in back there. I'm in the process of selling an old PC off tomorrow, and I've just got some crap laying around in this room. Still trying to figure out the layout of this one. So this desk where I'm sitting is kind of like work, stream, main computer, game, that kind of stuff. And then my second desk when we were on the other side of the room was in an L shape along the wall, and that sort of just had a printer and like a second PC. That's the one I'm actually selling, and it actually was where my main computer sat as well next to me. But this configuration, we wanted to try something a little bit different in this room. So, like one of the things that we did was we moved the desk over next to me, so it's along the same wall, so it's lengthwise, and going to use that as sort of a build station. So if I want to build a new PC or I want to do some modifications or whatever to my existing ones, I have a whole workstation for that. And then down back in there, we're probably going to get a couch this weekend. And then we'll fill in the wall behind me with some stuff. We're contemplating shelving units and some artwork and stuff. So the room's kind of a work in progress. Not quite there yet, but we'll get there soon. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. Doing all this moving around. I actually thought it would take me probably the better part of a day to get settled into this new layout, and it's actually been probably 2 weeks. And I'm still not really settled. I'm not happy with a whole bunch of stuff, to be honest. Like yeah, I need to, there's some things now sort of need to address, over the next month or so. I'm debating, like, so I want a new camera, and I'm kind of tossing up whether or not I'm going to wait for Black Friday before I buy that and see if I can get some kind of discount or some kind of sale on a camera. I'm looking at, I'm kind of looking at a Sony. I'm going to actually tighten that screw again. This arm. Hold on a sec. Um, yeah, I'm looking at a Sony ZV-10, and that's a reasonably new camera. It's kind of it's it's not dissimilar in sensor and functionality to the A6400. They both use the same mounts for lenses and stuff like that, and I think they have the same sensor. And there's just a few minor differences, which for what I'm kind of doing, um, I prefer the ZV-10 feature set. So um, so I think that's what I'm gonna buy. So I'm kind of tossing up whether or not just to wait until Black Friday, Cyber Monday, and see if I can get it then. But I'm pretty concerned about inventory levels. We're having a real problem here in Australia at the moment that um, there's no cargo coming into the country because there's no flights. There's no inbound flights, or not very few inbound flights. There's just not enough space for cargo to come. And if you know anything about global logistics at the moment, you'll know that cargo containers, cargo ships, are basically months behind, backed up. Um, there's months and months of goods backed up in ports and places, and um, the cost of containers to Australia. Somebody was telling me they went from $500 a square or a cubic meter or something to $50,000. Like, that's ridiculous. I mean, it's utterly silly. If that, I'm not sure how true that is, but I heard it from a tech vendor at work. So they're actually having to fly in all of their tech. This is a big global vendor, by the way. This is not like, you know, Jay's Computer Hardware. This is like, if I said the name who this vendor was, you would know who they are, and you would be surprised. So these guys are struggling to get their stuff here. And the other thing we're seeing, just as a totally aside, is rampant price rising. So one vendor, one big global vendor, raised their pricing in August by about 4.5 to 5%, and they basically said chip shortages, logistics, we can't get parts, so we're having to increase our pricing because we're having to pay more for things. And now, October, they're raising their prices again 7%. Their pricing will have gone up, I think, close to 15% in 2021. And this isn't like $100, parts for your PC. This is $100,000 pieces of technology. And the other thing is too, so if you are in that space at all, you'll know that discounting is pretty serious, right? So you have a big deal. Say you're going to buy, I don't know, $500,000 of network switches, and you're talking to Cisco, and you're talking to Aruba, and you're talking to, Palo Alto or whoever, like you're talking to all these different vendors, right? They get really super aggressive on discounting off list price. And one of the things we're seeing at the moment is that's not happening. They're like, here's a price. Yeah, we know it's competitive. We'll give you like 2 points, 4 points, 6 points off list. And it's very expensive. And it's driving clients and customers who would traditionally build on premise, so they have their own data centers in their buildings and stuff. It's driving them to cloud. And that's creating a whole different set of problems. So it's quite fascinating. And a lot of it is driven, I mean, chip shortages are a big one, but global logistics is a huge problem. U.S. Postal Service, first class air freight to Australia has been canceled. So if you walk into a U.S. Postal Service post office and say, I want to ship this box first class to Australia, they'll say, we can't deliver there. We're like North Korea. They just can't get the freight here. And so you then have, there's other means you can get it to Australia, but it's way more expensive. So shipping from the US to Australia is even expensive now. There's no ships and there's no planes. So what we're seeing is the government's kind of saying, well, we're going to fast track the opening of international travel, particularly to the US and the UK. And that really is just to get Qantas up in the air, hopefully Virgin up in the air on the Sydney LAX route, with a view that, a whole bunch of the air freight can start moving again. I wouldn't be surprised. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if for these initial flights for Qantas, if the self-loading freight, i.e. the passengers, had reduced cargo capacity. So instead of 2 suitcases, you could take 1. That wouldn't surprise me if Qantas institutes a plan like that in the short term. Because air freight, there's way, way more money for them in moving goods for governments and industry than it is to take, Jesse's second suitcase full of sundresses. So, it's true. I used to know the former CEO of Qantas, and through business associates, and he one time referred to economy class passengers as self-loading freight. That's how they think of you. That's how the airlines think of you. And so what we're also seeing too is I was reading today that the airlines are ripping out business class seats. Like first class is gone. So here in Australia, we have first class, business class, premium economy, and then premium or economy. And so first class, aside from a very, very few select routes, most first class is gone. It just doesn't, like, it's expensive, but it just doesn't get a return. So that leaves business class. And a few years ago, Qantas were cool with that because Qantas business class is really good. It's a bit expensive, but it's good. And so they didn't really mind losing the first class passengers because they just went to business class and it was a pretty good experience anyway. And if you really wanted to fly first class to and from Australia, then you could always go Etihad or some other, one of the other Emirates or whatever. They all had first class. And I think Qantas were happy to lose those customers because there's so few of them. And so that was okay. And then, but now I hear they're starting to rip out business class seats as well and increase premium economy. Last time I was over in North America, I flew Virgin Australia. And I flew premium economy. It's the first time I've flown internationally in 25 years that I didn't fly business. I did a back and forth twice in 2018, 2019 to Canada. And it was the first time literally in 25 years that I hadn't flown internationally business class or first. And I flew Virgin Australia because somebody had said to me, man, get their premium economy and get, I think it's called Economy X. It might be Economy X. I don't know if they still have it now. It's very hard to, what's it called? Economy. Yeah, Economy X it was called. It wasn't even premium economy. And basically Economy X gave you 40% more legroom, and all kinds of priority service, similar to premium economy, but like some of the meals in that were not the same. And my hair is out of control again. And yeah, and so we ended up with basically huge amounts of space. And somebody had said to me before I booked, well, what's going to happen is you're going to get on Economy X and there's going to be nobody there. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, well, premium economy will be full. Business class will be full. Economy will be, people sitting on top of each other because that's what economy class is. And then this economy X thing, there'll be nobody in it. And I just couldn't work it out because it's not expensive. It was like, I think it was like $100 more or something on a $2,000 flight. Like that's nothing, right? So I took the punt, and yeah, on the way over to, I had to fly via Brisbane, which was kind of a nuisance, but Brisbane to LAX, there was nobody. There was nobody in my row. I had, so the three economy class seats on the side, I had them all to myself, and there was nobody in front of me either. So I had a whole row to myself and the row in front of me, so nobody would ever lean back. And there's more leg room too. So that was kind of neat. And I don't like eating on airplanes, to be honest. So the fact that it was an economy class meal, or slightly better than an economy class meal, I guess. Or maybe it's economy class, but you just get it first or something. I don't know. I don't like eating on planes. Food's garbage. So I tend to eat before I get on the flight, and then I might have a snack on the plane. I'll get like chips or some shit. And then I'll eat when I get off. Yeah, it was ridiculous. I couldn't believe it. And then on the way back on that flight, there was a young girl, early 20s, who was in the aisle seat in my row, and I had the window seat. So there was a seat in the middle of the two of us. So we had huge amounts of room. She literally slept across both seats. I don't care. Like, didn't bother me. She'd occasionally just sort of kick me or something, but doesn't bother me too much. So yeah, so she was chill. And then on the way home, then I went back and forth again. And it was very similar. I think one flight I had somebody next to me, but not next to me, but again in the aisle seat with the middle empty. And then the other flight, there was a young Brazilian couple in the row in front of me who were taking up 2 of the 3 seats, but I had the whole row to myself. It was ridiculous. This Economy X was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. It was kind of like paying for premium. It was kind of like having a premium economy experience at, economy plus $100 price. It was crazy. The other good one that I did on that trip too, because I was going to Canada, was I got to LAX, and then I jumped into the I went up to the Air Canada lounge, because my flights were Virgin to LAX and then Air Canada from LAX to Toronto. And so I jumped up to the Air Canada lounge and just said, "Can I upgrade?" And all 4 flights, both times, I got business class upgrades from my economy seat. And because I was booking it at a time, the upgrades were like $150. It was ridiculous. So I was getting business class seating for basically economy plus $150 from LA to Toronto and Toronto to LA. Did that all 4 times. So yeah, it was crazy. Although, you know what I hate. So I used to travel a lot internationally. If anyone had ever actually seen my travel schedule when I was a bit younger, working, I traveled a ridiculous amount, like ridiculous. I think I'm a lifetime Qantas Gold member. Like, that's how, like, Qantas Club, I think I'm a lifetime Gold member. I accumulated so many points in a couple of years. And one year for a couple of years I was platinum. I had a chairman's lounge card. It was silly how much I would travel. But my Qantas Club membership would renew on January 1st. And one year I renewed Qantas Club Gold by the 18th of January. I flew from Sydney to Spain and back twice in 2.5 weeks. That year, I think I was away from home 6 of the 12 months of that year. I think it was 2008 or 2009. I traveled for 6, literally I was away from home 6 of the 12 months that year. That was that year and the year after were the year that, so my wedding anniversary is March 17th, right? So St. Paddy's Day. And I think it was 2008, I'm pretty sure. And I was flying to Europe. I was flying to Germany. And the way that the flights worked, it was just past midnight or something on the plane. And we were flying over top of Afghanistan. And I called my wife from the plane to wish her happy anniversary. And so that was cool. And then the next year, exactly the same thing. I called her. We were flying over Afghanistan. I called her to wish her happy anniversary. That was when I decided I'd done too much flying. When consecutive years, you're calling your wife, wish her a happy anniversary from an aircraft over the same country. You've kind of done a disservice to your family at that point. But yeah, it was. But 2000, I want to say 2008 was crazy. It was insane that year. I was flying to Melbourne. I was spending the whole week in Melbourne most of the time, but having meetings in Sydney. So there were days where I think I said this on stream one time. I flew down on a Monday morning at like 6 o'clock, got to the office by sort of 8 in Melbourne, had meetings in the morning, left the office at 11, went to the airport, flew back to Sydney, was in the office in Sydney for a meeting at 2 o'clock, and then went home at 5, had dinner, and then went back to the airport and flew back to Melbourne. And that I had done that multiple times, where I would fly to Melbourne and then fly back in the middle of the day to go to a meeting in Sydney and then go back. And I did that for like 7 or 8 months. Ridiculous amount of travel. And all business class too. That was the other thing. It was all business class travel. So my Qantas Club points were just stupid. I've gotten so much free stuff from Qantas Club over the years from my Qantas Club points, my frequent flyer points. It's just silly how much free stuff I've gotten over the years. Like we a couple times we went on vacation and stuff and just paid for it all with points. It was madness. Good fun, but madness. But the travel takes it out of you. So, all these people are very excited to get back to international travel. I couldn't think of anything worse. I think at some point in time, in the next few years, my wife and I will do a European trip. And because we've never really done Europe. We did England a little bit before we were married. We did Asia a fair bit when we lived up there. We've been all around Australia together. She doesn't like to fly, so that's kind of a pain. But, I think she's always wanted to go to Paris and stuff like that. So I think one day at some point in the future, we'll do that. We'll set aside 4 weeks and we'll just go travel around Europe. And, one of the things I really enjoy in Europe is train travel. So I enjoy getting on the train somewhere at night and getting a sleeper car and then waking up in the morning in another country. I actually really enjoy that. It's not as cheap as air travel, but I just find it way more enjoyable. So when I was working in Madrid, on weekends, I would often get my secretary to get her to book me a trip. So I would, on Friday afternoon, because in Spain, shit sort of shuts down on Friday afternoon. People kind of go on siesta after lunch. So I would go back to the hotel, have a shower and change, have dinner, and then I would get a train overnight to Paris from Madrid, and I'd get the sleeper cabin and I'd get both bunks, so I'd have the whole car to myself, or the whole cabin to myself, and I'd just wake up in Paris. And then on Sunday I would do the same thing. I'd wake up Monday morning and I was back in Madrid. And again, because the way Spain operates, like, really, you don't kind of need to be in the office till 10 o'clock or so. So I would just go back to the hotel and have a shower and grab some breakfast and then head into the office and do some work there for a little bit. And I did that numerous times. I personally really like Paris. It's one of those cities I just actually enjoy. A lot of people go there and they're really, it's kind of this once in a lifetime romantic thing. For me, I went there over about a 5 year period. I went there so many times. I actually just enjoyed the place. There were, a lot of the touristy type things I actually just really enjoyed. Like, I like to look. I'm not a huge art person, but I think the Louvre is incredible. Like, I just would go there and I just stare at things. I don't know if I've talked about this on stream before, but if you go to the Louvre, there's a whole bunch of really, obviously there's a whole bunch of really fascinating things there. There's an archaeological dig there that's super impressive, and it's one of the least visited parts of the whole museum. But anyway, so clearly the most trafficked area in the Louvre is the room where the Mona Lisa is. And if you're not familiar with the Mona Lisa, it's actually a pretty small painting. It's not very big, and it's in a glass case cordoned off in the middle of a room. And it's just a zoo. There's so many people there looking at it. And honestly, it's kind of an average painting. Like, it's not, I don't know. But so if you're staring and you're looking straight at the Mona Lisa, behind you on the wall is this mural that is, oh, hey, Regina. There is this mural on the wall that takes up this, and this room is massive. It is just a huge room, but this mural takes up the whole back wall. It's phenomenal. And that's kind of like, you're sitting there thinking, like, all you idiots, turn around. Like, the best paintings you're going to see are behind you. And then, again, directly behind you, as you're looking at the Mona Lisa, directly behind you, if you walk out, there's a door sort of over your left shoulder. And there's a doorway out, and there's another passageway, and there's got all these paintings on the wall. And there's a Caravaggio there on the wall, just outside where the Mona Lisa is. And it's it's Caravaggio's Death of a Virgin. And for me, it's the greatest painting ever made. It's phenomenal. And you can stand there and stare at this thing for hours, right? And the only people who will kind of bother you are the idiots going to look at the Mona Lisa in the room behind you, right? Sometimes during the day, tour guides come and tourist groups come, and it gets a little bit busy. But you can sit there and you can stare at this, one of the greatest masterpieces ever created. And because of where it is in this museum, it's hardly ever looked at. I mean, there are Rembrandts and everything around there and stuff, but this Caravaggio is, again, I think it's the greatest painting ever made. I'm not sure of the story. I need to think about it a bit more, because I used to know it, but I think he got excommunicated for creating that painting. I'm not sure. Did Caravaggio? Excommunicated. Was he excommunicated? I'm not yeah, he eventually, he was excommunicated by the Pope at one point. But yeah, I'm trying to remember why it was. It may have, but Death of the Virgin was easily, it's a phenomenal piece of art. Right. Okay. Yeah. I've been to the Rijksmuseum, and yeah, it's I don't know. I just traveled a lot, and so I got to see a lot of those things. And I always thought I'm a fan of Rembrandt. You can, the thing about a Rembrandt, and I've seen a lot of his work, but it's surreal. you can get up as close as you can get to these paintings. And in some museums, you can actually get right up to them, like, you know, like less than an inch away. And you would never know it's paint. It's the most surreal thing. You see no brush stroke. It's just like the paint merged to the canvas, almost like a photograph. It's surreal. It's I think in terms of realism, it's the most he was the most realistic painter I've ever seen. But yeah, there's tons. See, I'm not a fan of Amsterdam generally, but there are some nice things there. My times in Amsterdam were always trying to think of a nice way to describe it. They were always highly anticipated and not very memorable is a good way to describe it. I always get excited. I was always excited to go to Amsterdam, and then I get there, and it was just slightly disappointing. I actually feel the same way about London. I've been to London, obviously, quite a bit. London is always the same for me. So I get very excited about going to London, and then I get there, and I'm actually quite disappointed. Paris is the complete opposite. Every time I go there, it's just like one of the greatest experience. I always have every time I go to Paris, I have a better time than I had anticipated I would. It's just, I think it's probably one of the best places on earth, generally. I wouldn't want to live there or anything like that, but yeah. It's one of the things when you travel to some of these museums around the world. You have famous paintings, and then you have things that you're shocked. I'm trying to think of the one. There's a sculpture. I can't remember the name of it. There's a sculpture in the Louvre, and it's just unbelievable. It's so massive, and you're sitting there thinking, how did they do this? And I remember reading in one of the guides when I was there, and I think it was Michelangelo who said that you're not creating the piece out of the sculpture out of stone. The sculpture is in the stone. You're just letting it out. And I always kind of thought that it's a romantic notion, but it's really impressive, right? The idea that this masterpiece of sculpture is there the whole time, and it's just waiting for the right person to free it. It's quite a romantic notion. It's very nice. I'm a big fan. So yeah, one of the little known facts about Sean is Sean likes art. Not in I'm not an art major, or I couldn't tell you the history of, the different art movements and all that stuff. That's not my thing. I don't have that level of interest, but I like art, and I like going to museums, and I enjoy the stories behind some of the paintings and some of the sculptures, and I always enjoy the pieces that are unheralded, as opposed to the greatest pieces. But again, if you ever get to Paris, in the Louvre, there is an excavation site. There was something at that site before the museum, obviously. And when they were doing some renovations, they dug down and found this historical site there. And so being a museum, they just preserved it all in situ. And so you can walk over the ground, and it's glass. And so you can look down and you can see straight into the excavations. It's like the other place I've been that's phenomenal is Xi'an in China. So Xi'an is where the terracotta warriors are. And I went a long time ago. And back then, China was a little bit more of the Wild West, let's just say. China's a lot more rigorous now. And so I was there with this American guy through work. We actually were in China, and he said, let's go up to Xi'an. So we took a bus to Xi'an. And it was a long trip. Anyway, we got off and we went to the excavation site, and they had a year or two earlier passed the rule that tourists were not allowed down into the excavation site. You had to go. They had built a museum there, and you had to look at the warriors in the museum. But there's so much stuff at Xi'an. There's so many warriors down there. There's so much stuff that China could be excavating it for the next 2 decades and then never reach the end of all the stuff that's buried there. It's basically a whole city. And this American dude said to this tour operator, I'll give you $100 US if you take us down in the hole. And the guy said, no, I can't. And he said, okay, I'll give you, come on. And he brought out the money, $100. And the guy said $100 each. And so I pulled out $100 too. And he took us down to the excavation site. And we had to wear like a full respirator mask because they're worried about respiration and CO2 and things sort of corrupting the specimens down there. So you have to wear a respirator mask. But the beauty of the respirator mask is that it hides your identity, so they don't really know who you are. And they're not, security's pretty lax, or was back then. They're really mostly just archaeologists and academics. So these 2 6'1" giant people stood out like dog's balls, but were wearing respirators so they couldn't tell who we were. And we just wandered around and got to look at some of the shit they were pulling out of the ground. It was phenomenal. It's insane. And what you don't realize is some of these warriors still have the original pigmentation on them. So they still have paint. Or I remember being in one area of the underground excavation, and I remember asking the tour guide, like, what is this? And he said, it's an armory. And it was like, quite literally, for these terracotta warriors, they built armories for them. So there was whole rooms full of spears and armor plating and stuff like that. Oh, obviously all made out of terracotta. But they built them an armory. It's just surreal. It was absolutely surreal to look at. So we spent the better part of like 3 or 4 hours down there wandering around, talking to academics and archaeologists and listening to them debate, the purposes of things. It was fascinating. You could never do that now. You offered somebody $100 to take you down there, they'd shoot that guy and put you in jail for corruption. China's a different place than it was sort of 20 years ago. 20 years ago, China was on the precipice of being a great nation. They could have gone down the road of increased civil liberties and developing wealth and prosperity, and Xi Jinping kind of took it the other direction. It's just sad. I would have liked to have seen what China could have done, what they could have created as a truly sort of free, fair, capitalist nation. They had every advantage, and communist dictatorship sort of blew it for them. But anyway, is what it is. But Xi'an is phenomenal. I quite like Shanghai as well. I dislike Beijing intensely. I think Beijing is one of the worst cities in the world. There's nothing. It has zero redeeming features. But Shanghai is kind of cool. And one place that is slightly overrated is Japan. I've been to Tokyo a few times. It's just overrated. It's just really busy, and Japanese people are polite, but still, it's not very. I don't know, man. It's not very fun. It's very crowded, and there's those electronic centers and districts and stuff like that. I don't know. Japanese technology is all childlike. Doesn't interest me. There's only so much Hello Kitty I can look at before I kind of, Pokemon before I lose interest. I'm going to move this. Okay, so tonight, the challenge is we're going to play a bit of Modern Warfare. But what I've done, as of if you were watching, I shouldn't have done that. Oh, well, never mind. I'll leave it over there. Last night, you'll know that I switched to X264 to see if my new processor could take some load off the GPU when it's trying to encode. So I'm now going to try and play Modern Warfare with... I'm going to try and play some Modern Warfare and stream at the same time, but with the processor doing most of the work. So I need to pay attention to what my CPU is doing in terms of utilization and stuff. But should be interesting. And temperatures as well. Last night I was running into a scenario where a couple of cores in one of the CCDs, my processor was up. They were up at like 77, 78 degrees Celsius, which is fine. That's kind of not abnormally high for a Ryzen. But a lot of the other ones were down at 40 and stuff. So I'm curious to see tonight if I can get the whole... Oh, that's really interesting. So the CPU is full on was at 100% just then. Like it was just went hard. Hold on a sec. Okay, I'm just listening for the fans and stuff. I'm curious to see what this does, because this might be an epic fail, and we'll have a very short stream. We'll go back to chatting or something. If the processor can't handle streaming and gaming at the same time with the CPU doing the encoding, then my frame rate will take a nosedive, and we'll see where we're at. So let's get into that and see what happens. Okay. I'm actually going to turn off performance mode for a minute. Shipment extended. Let's go. Well, that's exciting. We'll see what happens here. Okay, so CPU's running at 70 something percent. So my hypothesis here is that if this works the way I think it should work, I should be getting 180 to 190 frames while streaming. Because with using NVENC, I'm not getting anything close to that. I'm getting 150, but off stream I get 200. So my hypothesis is that NVENC is overloading the GPU and my processor is just sitting there doing very little. So tonight we're going to test that hypothesis out. If this ever just lets us into a game. We're apparently looking for one more player. It's hard to believe that Shipment Extended is struggling to find players. There we go. Let's go. I'll run the CX9 and see what happens. So far, so good. Everything looks all right. I'm not dropping frames. Okay. No, this looks this looks a little bit worse. We'll see in a second. We'll play with the CX9. Yeah, so the 1% lows are... I'm dropping 1% lows. I'm going to turn on performance mode. We'll see what happens.
Team deathmatch. We've got enemy inbound. Lock and load.
Oh. What? Uh-oh. What am I using here? What gun is that? Holy shit, that's terrible. Whoa. What are you doing? You're hiding in the container. How did I not kill that guy? What? They're just hiding in containers, some of these guys. What am I getting shot by here? They're all in the back corner. So this didn't... My hypothesis was not correct. What? Fuck's sakes. They're just hiding in the containers. It's kind of... What am I getting killed by? I can't. The amount of screen shake at the moment is... Who is in that community? Is that one of our guys hiding in the middle container? Fucking landmines. Those two just crouch walk next to each other the whole game. Stunned myself. Nice. Ugh. What? Does he have a shotgun or something? Look at this guy. What is he doing? So one of them has a rocket launcher.
Be advised, friendly position inbound. Wilson on station, beginning sweep.
My stream is lagging. Yeah, it is in performance mode. Yeah, so this didn't work. Yeah. Well, that was unfortunate. Dude just wants to go with his riot shield and hide in the container. Wow, that guy just spawned right behind me. That guy just sits in corners. Look at that guy. That guy just sits there. I've been watching him the whole game do that. Now there's multiples of them just sitting there. What? Like, aim your gun, bro. Okay, I'm gonna duck out for a second. Okay, so something clearly went wrong there. What happened there? Skipped frames. Okay, so there was a whole bunch of frame skipping during that. I wonder what caused that. It must have been performance mode, not being in performance mode. So there was a lot of lag. Was it just that one time, or was it the whole time? Like the whole game? Because I didn't get the performance boost I thought I would get. I didn't get what I thought I would get. I might try something else, actually. Let's see if I can do it. Okay. Let's bring that over here. Advanced view. Let's bring that over here. And let's put it in game mode. Oh, shit. Well, the whole game. Okay. Well, then this stream is chalked because I can't switch my encoding. I can't switch my encoding midstream, so that's kind of a shit show. That's a bit of a bummer. I need to do some more work with this. I might talk to Cornel and find out what the hell is going on, because I'm finding that I'm dropping, like I'm losing between. If I play shipment off stream, if I'm playing shipment off stream, I'm getting 200 FPS. If I stream with it and I use the NVENC encoder, I'm happy that I expect to lose. I expect to lose some frames. So I switched for yesterday and today. I switched to X264 to see if I could get some of the encoding done on the CPU. I mean, Modern Warfare doesn't require 12 cores and 24 threads. It just doesn't. So my thought process was, well, let's try running the stream with the CPU, and there should still be enough for Modern Warfare not to even. So today the issue wasn't. Today, just it looks like the CPU is just chalked, which is weird. I could use Process Lasso, and I could pin 6 cores to Modern Warfare and 6 cores to Streamlabs, and I could make sure they're on different CCXs or CCDs, and then there'd be no use of the Infinity cache, so the fabric wouldn't get used, and it'd effectively be like having 2 6-core 12-thread CPUs, one running the game and one running the stream. And then that would take all the pressure off. On NVENC, when I'm running during stream, I'm getting about 150 odd. But, so I'm losing somewhere probably 30 to 40 frames using NVENC, and that doesn't make sense. I can't figure that one out for the life of me. So, yeah, not ideal. But that's okay. It was a good experiment. I wanted to try it, and it didn't work. So now I have to figure it out. I kind of, out of this experiment, I anticipated that I'd get about 175 to 180 frames using X264. But something's not set up correctly, or something not right. So that's okay. I'll keep working on it, keep tweaking it. I'll figure it out. Like I said, I think I'll send Cornel a DM and ask him if he's got any tips on how to set this up better. I think he owes me a favor, so I might hit him up. Yeah, and that's weird. You shouldn't be losing that much, right? You shouldn't be losing. So 30 to 40 frames per second in Modern Warfare is so off a base of about 190, 200. Yeah, I'm kind of losing about 20% performance, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And it's totally not CPU bound. Like, I know that for a fact. Because my CPU is, when I'm running it on NVENC, the CPU is not even being touched. Like, it's running at like 15 or 20%. So, like 12 cores, 24 threads, all running close to 5 gigahertz. It's kind of a monster. It's a monster CPU, this one. So, I think I've just set something incorrectly. I think there's just a setting there somewhere that I have a feeling in my advanced config file. I may need to lower the core count to 6 instead of 7, and see if I can keep it on one die or something. I don't know. I'll play with it. But shipment extended is back, which is kind of neat. I didn't know that. I haven't played it at all. I kind of just not been in a headspace to play a lot of games lately. I've been sort of doing other stuff, but I sold my second PC, the older one, which was cool. I was pretty excited about that. I was gonna use that money to start building out. Yeah, that's right. The work account. I have it set to 7, and if I drop it to 6, I could theoretically then only use half the cores, and then it should stay on the one CCX. Theoretically. And I could use Process Lasso to enforce that if I wanted to. But I don't know. It comes back to, like, 9 months ago, sort of February, March, I did a shit ton, a shit ton of optimization stuff with Warzone. Like, I was spending a couple hours a day optimizing, and I had my machine running ridiculously quick for what it was in Warzone at 1440. And so I did all that work, and then I kind of lost interest in Warzone. I find Warzone super hard to play now. I just have no interest in it. So, it's a pity the Battlefield beta was such a disaster. I'm quite disappointed about that, to be honest. I really wanted Battlefield to be good. Because I wanted to play something a little bit different, even if it was for just to mix things up a bit. But it's such a write-off. And some developer at DICE said, "Oh, the beta it's a 3-month-old build." Like, you genuinely have to be pretty stupid to believe that. Like, you see people repeating it, and you just kind of think, are you, like, dumb or just a complete Battlefield fanboy? because there's no shot that they released a 3-month-old beta, like a build from 3 months ago. There's no win for EA. There's no victory there. The only tick box you check is the one that says, well, we released a public beta. Because if you're running a build, like if you think about these games, right? These games have somewhere between a 2 and 3 year development cycle, right? So 3 months is that's like 10% of the game's life. Like, especially, and at the end of a development cycle, that's a huge amount of time. People who believe they don't have any background in software development. That's number one. If you believe that, you have no background in software development, commercial development, because you would never do that to yourself. It's releasing a 3-month-old build as a public beta a month out from the full release of your game is so colossally stupid that you would have to be dumb to even think that that's something that anyone would consider. Because you effectively just end up in a situation where everybody who's playing your game is going to be seeing bugs and mechanical problems that you've potentially fixed 2 months earlier. The game will have lacked the last 3 months of any commercial software build, doesn't matter what, anything with more than a 2-year life cycle of development. The last 3 months are mostly polish. You are trying to clear out tech debt and polish the user experience. That's all you're doing. So to say that you actually released a build without any of that is so silly, because you're just setting yourself up to fail. So the feedback will never be good, because people are going to go, oh, that's a 3-month-old build, that looks great. Nobody's ever going to say that. They're going to complain because there's going to be a lot of unnecessary bugs. The game's going to lack polish. The game's not going to be optimized correctly. Public betas aren't public betas at all now. They're demos. And anyone who thinks otherwise is dumb. Vanguard wasn't an open beta. It was a demo. It was a late beta demo, but it was a demo. That game was almost done. There's some polish and some fine tuning and things like that. And then you compare the response from Sledgehammer to the response from EA. And Sledgehammer were fixing bugs during the beta. They were making optimizations during the beta. Between the PlayStation Alpha and the public beta, they made a number of modifications to things that were important. Now, I wasn't super impressed with the Vanguard beta. I'm going to be completely honest. There was something in that felt wrong. It just didn't play to me. It didn't play well. I didn't like a lot of the maps and whatever, right? So I'm not sitting here saying Vanguard was amazing, Battlefield was rubbish. I wasn't sold on Vanguard. But it was in a much better place than where Battlefield was. Yeah, I think, as I said when I was playing it, the mode that they released for the beta wasn't fun for me, and I gave them a pass. I think the movement in Battlefield is pretty good. I actually like it, but I do see some of the bunny hopping flaws and a few of those kind of things. I get it. That needs to be fixed. But the problem with Battlefield is they broke Battlefield, right? One of the best parts of Battlefield was the team play. To be successful, you needed to work within your unit. Really, you need to work with your teammates. It was a core component of Battlefield. And in their effort to just rip off Modern Warfare, they broke that. I don't understand. Apparently Tom Henderson is going to have an article coming out in the next few days about what the hell went wrong with Battlefield 2042's development cycle. But apparently he's leaked some of his article before he's released it. And that whole let's just steal that from Modern Warfare is a big part of it. I think if you look at Battlefield, when I think about it, the number one mistake that they made was they wanted it to be Modern Warfare. They wanted to compete with Warzone, but they weren't prepared to compete with Warzone, and it's not Modern Warfare. Like that's the end of the day. They just weren't prepared. EA or DICE or whoever weren't prepared to stump up and take Warzone on. They just weren't. Not at launch. Maybe they will. They might release a BR. Who knows? But they weren't prepared to do that at launch. And I look at that game and I think they thought they might. I think at some point in the development life cycle of that game, the fact that it doesn't have a campaign leads me to believe that they were going into the BR space with that game and then bailed. They pulled the ripcord at some point and didn't. I'd be 100%. I'd be willing to bet a warm meal that was their strategy. Is let's do a BR, and then I think they just got cold feet at some point, or something wasn't right, and they just said no, let's not do that. So yeah, I was pretty disappointed with Battlefield. I think it had a lot of good elements to it, but that's a game where if they said they were going to release it in March 2022, I would say good for you. That's a smart idea, but they won't. They'll throw it out in November. It'll get crushed by all the hype around Vanguard, and then they'll release it, and a couple days later, the new Warzone will come out, and that'll just basically suck all the oxygen out of their room. And then a few weeks later, Halo will come with free multiplayer, and that'll be that. Nobody will be playing Battlefield. Just nobody. You'll be playing bots like we were in the beta. So that's pretty disappointing. But yeah, Vanguard. I mean, I paid for it and I bought the Ultimate Edition. I don't know. I wasn't wrapped. I wasn't in love with the game. Let's put it that way. It looked okay. It needed work. Like, that's another game. If they said they were going to delay it 2 months, I'd be like, yeah, that's probably a smart idea. But no shot Activision misses Christmas. No shot. So we're getting caught on the 5th of November no matter what at this point. Which is fine, I suppose. Yeah, I'm pretty disappointed about this performance issue. I'll have to watch back the VOD and see just how bad it was. So obviously something went screwy. Not sure what it could have been. Oh well. I'm wondering if there's any additional performance hit on NVENC because I'm streaming at 1440p. I wonder if it's, I mean, it theoretically has to do more work. So I wonder if that's actually part of it. I might try a 1080p stream and see what happens at some point. Although I don't like streaming in 1080. May as well be on Twitch if I'm doing that. Yeah, I agree. There's something there. So NVENC is supposed to be self-contained, right? It's all its own encoding processor, but it does use the CUDA cores as a pipeline. So I'm wondering if it's 1440, it can't keep up, and so therefore it's sort of sucking up CUDA cores. So my rendering is, my rasterization and everything is not great. Or I'm just losing cycles or something. I need to think that through. That's actually, I'll just do something. Sorry, I'm just going to bring up a browser. And remember to NVENC 1440p encoding performance. Let's see what happens. Well, that's interesting. Well, we'll see what happens. I think I'm going to call it there. It's very short stream, but I'm not going to play any more games because it's going to just shit itself. And so I might actually take this as an opportunity to go to bed a bit early. That sounds like good. It's a good idea. Thanks to everyone who turned up. Jason, Regina, other lurkers, I appreciate you. And we'll probably be back Wednesday. Testing out some more stuff. See you then. Cheers.